Governor Wolf Reinhold. And we have Hader with our Rotary Youth Exchange as a guest. And we have Penny, who's picking up all the tips from Mary that she can as she gets ready to become the secretary next year. So with that, what I'd like to do is, because I had shared with Wolf and Hader that I would allow to get our conversation going first with regard to Rotary Youth Exchange, youth protection, and the way that we vet people. And I know that was a topic of discussion at our last board meeting. So basically, my understanding is that Wolf, you'd like to try and see us move into one plan on this versus having two, or?
No. So those of you that have been with Rotary for a while, you might remember the Wessex training or Wessex database that was basically a Western States Youth Exchange database that was being used by much of the zone, actually, much of the Western United States, and maybe even beyond. But so a little bit of background history. Back in 2012, I guess it would have been, or maybe 11 even, maybe it was 12. Maureen asked that I become the District Abuse Prevention Coordinator, which ran hand in hand with the Student Safety Officer. And as I looked at the task, it was basically, my role was that of compliance officer for youth service. And Youth Exchange had a great program. The Wessex database was capturing all the things that they needed for vetting an individual who was going to be a host parent or a youth counselor for Youth Exchange. But nowhere in their system did it allow for all those other youth related vettings and backgrounds and such that you would need to do for being an Interact chair or RILA chair or any of those things. And so because there was no other system, and because all of the online courses and such were only available through Wessex, we started importing, youth service people, non-youth exchange youth service people into Wessex. We started using that for tracking. Well, that kind of, if you will, overwhelmed the system. And so when they redesigned or updated that system, they created the YAY system, the Youth Exchange Administrative Hub, which has been around for a while now. But and then the regular youth service folks, we continued using Wessex. Well, Wessex old platform needed to be updated, so the architects of YAY basically created a parallel system, which we call YVM, the youth volunteer management system, which had many of the same links, but it was a separate database to track anything youth service related that was not Youth Exchange. So they kind of go hand in hand. And I think we need to keep it that way because Youth Exchange has separate requirements and different timelines than is necessary for the rest of youth service. So, and that's kind of where we're at.
So basically we would be just stay where we are and just keep on the track that we're on, and there's no request here to make any kind of change with regard to Rotary Youth Exchange. So
correct. The only thing that, and Hyder and I've had this discussion in the past, years ago, I want to say back around maybe 2014 or so, Charlie Kelly made arrangements to use a online background service called IntelliCorp to do the backgrounds for Youth Exchange. And it was automated. the returns were automated, automatically went into the record, the volunteers record in Yay. And so it was convenient. The cost was being picked up by Youth Exchange, so the individual didn't have to go pay for a live scan fingerprint and everything else. So it was convenient. The problem that I see with my law enforcement background is IntelliCorp is a snapshot in time. So when you submit to an IntelliCorp, you're a new Youth Exchange person and you submit to it, it goes out and it does a relatively decent background on you, with all the states that you've resided in, because you fill out your application, all that kind of stuff. But it's just a snapshot at that point in time. Now Youth Exchange has the requirement that IntelliCorp check be done annually. So every year it has to be redone. So if you pass the original background and you do something stupid a week later, Youth Exchange isn't going to know about that until the next year when they do the next update on that. So the benefit of live scan is when you do the live scan, not only does it do a background check right then and there, it also automatically sends or updates the file anytime something happens after the background. So because it's connected to Rotary, anytime anybody does anything, I, as basically the DOJ records coordinator for Rotary for District 5130, I get the message of any subsequent arrests, any court actions, and it is actually in the past helped us. We had a report of a person who got arrested for embezzlement, and they happened to have a financial position with the district. So we were able to immediately remove that person or remove their access from financial records and everything else and take care of it. If we'd been doing the IntelliCorp piece, we wouldn't have known about it for another year, doing the annual checks. So my preference is even in Youth Exchange, that first time volunteers submit to the fingerprint, the live scan fingerprint one time, and then they're good, because that connection, that notification to me continues as long as they're Rotarians until I actually remove them from the system. In fact, if those that may have looked at the YVM system, if we cancel somebody or we remove them or inactivate them, there's a flag that comes up to make sure that the person who does the DOJ stuff, me, removes them from the DOJ flagging. So that's why it's only one time. Now, the IntelliCorp annual piece would be a redundant check. It's not really necessary, but I think RYE policy is that they will use IntelliCorp, and it's something that all of Western states does. Now, not all of the districts, many of the districts, that is all they use, is that IntelliCorp check for Youth Exchange. Districts, I want to say it's 50-40, and I know 5170 do require a physical fingerprint in addition to, in addition to the IntelliCorp for first-time people. And I'd like to be in that same spot, because I think it would be beneficial for us to get notification immediately if some transgression occurs with any of our youth volunteers. So that's the only thing that's not happening yet, and I'll let Hyder speak to that. I know part of it is a convenience piece, and you're trying to get people to volunteer to host people and everything else, but I'll let him speak to that.
Thank you, Wolf. Yep, the information you shared is accurate, and it's something we spoke about a number of times. In Youth Exchange, most of our volunteers are non-Rotarians. The majority of them host families, tend to be non-Rotarians. which is a benefit to Rotary because that brings in more people into Rotary. And then the parents are also involved with volunteering at our events. They help us with that as well, which is also involved. So it's not just Rotarians we're talking about a large population of non-Rotarians. And we cannot do away with the IntelliCorp because the system will continue flagging it. Well, you didn't do IntelliCorp, but we did LifeCan instead. The system does not recognize our system that we use that gets audited by the Department of State does not recognize LifeScan. They know what it is, but it's not part of the program. We cannot check a box as LifeScan was done, and therefore, boom, they're good. It'll keep coming up annual. The annual checkup has to happen every year, and then LifeScan does not populate into our computer system, so we cannot have it when they get their LifeScan populate the system. Somebody has to go in manually and do it. So there is that work. We continue to use IntelliCorp because that auto populates. There's another company that's coming up that's trying to be similar to IntelliCorp, but they haven't integrated into the system yet. And it's good for them to have competition because it may bring the prices down a little bit. But for now, we have to use IntelliCorp every year. Even if we use LifeScan, we still have to do both. The district absorbs that cost. With LifeScan, I don't know what kind of mechanism is in place to lighten the burden of non-Rotarians to do the LifeScan. If, we're Rotarians, it's part of what we want to do. It's part of what Rotary requires us to do. We should not need to be reimbursed for doing LifeScan unless the district decides, yeah, let's reimburse them as well. But host families, other volunteers, we ask them to go do LifeScan. I would like to offer them a reimbursement or someplace where they don't have to pay and we get charged. Reduce that distraction and inconvenience of cost. We're down to 11 kids, and we used to be 24, 25 kids. And the biggest reason we're down to that many kids is because clubs have a hard time finding host families. And we've spoken about that, Tom, and we've all spoken about it. I spoke that with Dustin.
Yeah.
Where the district is planning on doing a big push. The district committee is planning to doing a big push after NIAN, which is the North Atlantic Youth Exchange Network. It's a whole group of all of us, Canada, US, and Mexico. That's a convention we're going to in March, is to develop a committee that's going to go out and push. Clark, you're there. She's going to be part of that. And we're going to go out and do a big push to all the clubs that are participating to help with developing host families and to increase how to find more host families and having them more engaged with the clubs, have the clubs more engaged with them, making them part of the Rotary family as opposed to hosting for Rotary. And we'll see how that'll go. And we're not alone. The whole world, a Rotary Youth Exchange, that's their biggest struggle, which is why in Europe and some other country and other continents, they force the family that's sending out a kid to host, whether they like it or not. You're going to send your kid out, you have to host. Rotary says, no, you're not allowed to do that, but they admit they do it anyway. And there is really no enforcement. Rotary's not going to pull the district out of Youth Exchange because they're doing that. So they continue to do it. We refuse to do that because it creates a dynamic that could be very, very bad for the kids. Oh, you're only in my house because my kids are up there. I really don't want to host you, kind of thing. And it comes out. Our kids have suffered that when they've been overseas. I digress. So let's go back to the LifeScan thing.
So just to add on, Hyder, so the LifeScan, it's approximately, I think, a $50 fee to do a LifeScan, and with the non-youth exchange portion, clubs are basically absorbing. Well, the volunteers initially absorbing it, but then it's a club decision whether they want to reimburse the Rotarian or Rotarian volunteer for that cost. My club, we actually have a invoicing set up with our local LifeScan provider, and our volunteers can go in, say they're doing it for the Rotary Club of Rohnert Park Cotati, and then that business sends us an invoice. So our volunteers don't have to pay that. But again, that's a club decision, club to club decision to do that. And for youth exchange, if we went down this road, my suggestion would be initial volunteers. Yes, they would get live scan, but it's a one-time thing. They don't have to do that. After that first time, they're in the system until I remove them or my successor removes them from the DOJ system, and the notification, continues until we remove them. So it's a one-time shot that clubs would incur for those particular volunteers. So yeah.
So this is an added measure that
it is a manual entry, but if they do an entry for non-youth exchange, I can go ahead and transfer that into the youth exchange system and show that it's there. It doesn't remove the requirement to get the IntelliCorp because it isn't really integrated in the system, but I can show that they have a DOJ background and it shows up in their youth exchange record as well as in the non-youth exchange record.
Where do you put that in the record? Do you put in the notes? Or?
In the background. I just do an extra background. I add an extra background document and just put it in the document.
Just upload it into that?
Yep.
Because there's no box to check. You just it's a manual thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You have to, like in notes or something like that.
Right.
But it's not something we can track. That's the issue.
Hey, Wolf, it's Christine. Have you checked with IntelliCorp to see if they have a monitoring program also? Because background screening companies usually can do that arrest monitoring as well.
I have not. That, like I said, that was something Charlie Kelly set up.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because that's obviously my industry too. And most companies now do have arrest record monitoring. If you'd only want to use one system. But if you've already got the live scan, kind of set up, that's fine. I just wanted to try to reduce the number of vendors we have to work with.
So here's the other piece that why I and a lot of my peers and even some of the youth exchange youth service folks from like 5170 and what was his name? Guy up in Washington. He was actually one of the original architects of both Yay and YVM. He recently passed away.
Okay.
Mike Cloutier. One of the things why we prefer the fingerprint is IntelliCorp does the validation simply on your name, your date of birth,
SSN,
your address, and your social security number.
Right.
There is no physical verification. It is possible, unlikely, but it is possible for somebody to spoof somebody else if they know.
That's true. Yeah. There's all these new ID products coming out too that yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Whereas a fingerprint, that's a physical verification that is the person who you are doing the background on.
Yeah.
And we just more comfortable with that.
No, I agree. We may want to revisit this in a year or so because I just got back from my sales meeting at my new company, and these ID products are now coming out where you can confirm who you are, that you are who you say you are via, physical face recognition and things like that. But that makes complete sense. Thank you for clarifying.
In fact, DMV just did they're doing a pilot program with the same kind of identification where you
it's really exciting. It will really make things a lot easier.
Facial recognition and everything else. So
that's right.
Yep.
It sounds like, that the situation right now is that we have to use IntelliCorp because that's what connects back with the RYE program. And what you're suggesting is another layer of protection with the live scan. And if in fact we have the situation where there's 3 families per year, then that's another $150 that we're talking about trying to figure out a way to absorb the $150 to the club to be able to have a host. And Hyder, if you're actually putting together a game plan to present back out the clubs, one thing I would tell you is that I have finished my visits and I have heard numerous clubs that have been participants in the past, but are just burnt out, that they just don't have somebody right now. So I like that idea. If we build this other live scan in, that we would be able to do something to say, and we'll cover the cost of that, so that those individuals would have that. And it sounds to me like these are pieces that are moving pieces, and we should try to find a way to incorporate all of this as you're going to go out and make these presentations to other clubs. And I'd be happy to send off some of my notes from some of the clubs that I talked to that said, you know, our problem is just that we just don't have anybody here. But I think they're missing the point, because we want to find people that are non-Rotarians to be able to take the kids in.
Agreed. It's still surprising to me that some clubs say, well, none of our Rotarians are hosting, and we have to reiterate that you don't have to be a Rotarian to host. Actually, that's part of the beauty of the program. It's a community program. And you know, and often we ask the kids that are here from overseas, hey, if you got a good friend, family at school, stuff like that, see if they want to host you for 3 months. We do that in our club. We leave the third host family open. And yesterday, actually, at my club, I said, hey, we're looking for a third host family. Some kids find somebody that they bond with that will host them, others do not. So out there, I mean, this is not the topic of discussion here, but yeah,
No.
it's definitely a struggle. And I just want to minimize the hoops and distractions to the process. If the district decides we want to do live scan, Youth Exchange will obviously be doing that, and we'll just have to figure out in the background how we're going to pay how the non-Rotarians get reimbursed. I'm sorry, Jim.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Hyder. My question has been, what would be the total cost for LifeScan per year if the district paid for it? Just I know that's an estimate, but on the higher end, what would it be?
Well, the maximum cost would be if somebody's already done it many years ago, they'd still be on there, wouldn't they? Is that true, Wolf?
That's correct.
So, because we used to do it a long time ago before IntelliCorp.
Yeah, but let's say we started from scratch.
The maximum would be 3 host families per club. That's the maximum. 3 hosts, and it's only one time. So 3 host families per club. And let's say there are 3 people on average per host family. They have an adult child with them. So that's 9 per club per year. So it doesn't matter per year, it's just a one time. So 9 times how many clubs are participating. So let's say now we have 12, 14, something in that range. So let's say 14 times 9. That's what the cost of it was from scratch, the maximum cost. So it won't cost that much because we've got people who've done it in the past, and you know, Rotarians that we probably don't want to reimburse and say, hey, thank you for your contribution kind of thing. But that would be the maximum.
Yeah, so you're looking at,
and then as new families pop up, I'm sorry, Jim, as new families enter the program, then they have to do it.
$1,200 to $1,500.
Yeah.
With the current load.
My concern is not as much the cost. I mean, that's something I'm sure the district and Youth Exchange can figure out how to absorb, is the mechanism of how to minimize the effort that volunteers have to do to get reimbursed or to be charged. I know up here, the location where we do live scanning will not invoice. Wolf, you're very lucky to have one down there that will. I think what we could do, we could have a credit card number with those live scan spots that they can charge. I think something like that. But we can figure it out. We're Rotarians. We can figure things out. We'll make sure it happens.
And as far as the Hyder, the way that I have it set up in YVM is when you complete the youth service application, which is the same one Youth Exchange uses, right? The youth, what used to be called the affidavit, but it's basically the application that they fill out online. Once they submit it, you know, it comes to a Rotarian to review, and you say, yeah, this is good, and then it automatically sends out to the references. That also triggers sending a document to them that says you need to do for the YVM side, you need to do a live scan. You know, here's the application form for live scan, which ties it to the district and ties it to me for the responses. And then it has a list of the live scan operators throughout the region that they can go to. So that is automatically triggered by the submission of the affidavit. Now, once that's done, I do have to go in to DOJ regularly and see what's come back in. And if there's a response, then I do have to go in and manually add that to the system on the YVM side. And then if it's needed on the youth exchange side, I can either do it myself or I can send it to a counselor to add into a particular volunteer's record. And then again, that's just a one-time need for that. The IntelliCorp piece would be automated and for subsequent years.
I think, and I'm going back to Hader's concern, how many different hoops are we going to have to make these people do? And then with that, then when you talk about live scan, how readily available is that in all of the 6 counties that we have? You know, if in fact if someone in Mendocino has to drive into Ukiah or what have you, or up if you're in Del Norte and you have to drive back down into Humboldt in order to do it. I just think that that's another thing to take consideration of. And possibly what we could do to move on here is to ask Wolf if you could, you know, research some of that. How accessible is the whole live scan, and be able to relay that back over to Hader. And you know, I like what Christine was saying with regard to whether or not the IntelliCorp actually has the ability to follow along for arrests and other things, activities that somebody has done that would cause for alarm. So if there's a way that that both Wolf and Hader can work together on this to try and at least present something, this is how feasible it is. These are the difficulties that we would look at with regard to accessibility of the program. I think that all of that makes great sense. And Hader, if you're in the process of developing this game plan to go out and try and convince clubs that, you know, here's how the program should work and could work and wouldn't it be great, then maybe incorporating whatever information we can come back with from Wolf would be a good idea at this time, so that way clubs would know this is what we're able to do. And I just think that in order to move it forward, we just have to have really clear information and have a game plan at the time that we come up with this this game plan, that we would have the ability for the district to be able to say, yes, we'll find a way to go ahead and compensate for this for the costs of these 9 individuals. Thanks, and I see that Michael just threw up a list of fingerprint locations. So,
Tom, can you hear me? This is
yes,
Clark.
I can, Clark.
So I think, and Hyder, jump in here if I'm wrong, but I think what's come up for the youth exchange aspect is not really anything to do with the cost. It's about this additional layer of being, you know, checked multiple times by multiple different entities to be able to be a host. And I am hosting currently for the first time, and I am deeply embedded in youth exchange and have been for my whole life. And there are things that have come up where I'm like, oh my gosh, another thing. Oh my gosh, another thing. And so I know the value of what youth exchange is. And I think a lot of Rotarians know the value. But when one of our main jobs is to seek out people that don't even know what Rotary is to be host parents, it feels extremely overwhelming and a little bit invasive. Which is like, of course, as a former exchange student, I would hope that someone really checked to see if my family was a safe place to live. But I think just that discussion in general is, you know, how many things are we going to make people jump through? And will it be feasible to ask these people, you know, like one of the big pushes for me is to try to find younger host families with growing families and, you know, juggling 3 kids' schedules now and doing the paperwork and making sure that my exchange student has, you know, everything they need and all that even before they got there. It was a lot. So I'm learning a lot in this role, but I think that that's the challenge, is like, how much are we going to make families do before it becomes impossible to convince people to do it?
So Clark, I mean, I appreciate your position, and I totally understand. At the end of the day, you know, my role within the district is we want to protect our students. and what's the best way to do that. And I'll tell you the most common response that I get with DOJ are DUIs. And we've had host families where a member gets a DUI, doesn't preclude them from hosting, but we as a district can now basically say, you can continue to host, but you can't drive that child. And we're in a position to do that because I get those notifications if I have the live scan for that person. And that's actually very common. It's probably the most common hit that I get when I do the checks is a member who's had a DUI. And first thing I do is look to see if they're involved with youth service and let the club know that that's an issue. So it's all about the safety of the children. And I'm sorry that it's inconvenient, but I think as Rotarians, we need to do our due diligence, and that's my personal opinion. And prior boards have basically said that that's what the district wants to do. We've just never followed through and completed it.
Justin?
Yeah, is this just a matter of like setting expectations when we get host families? I mean, Claude, you said you were kind of overwhelmed with the amount of stuff you had to do. So I think it might be better on our end to just like set these expectations earlier on and say, hey, this is what's going to happen up front. We expect this, and then it's over, and then you're clear and free from here.
We do that. The volunteer section of the Youth Exchange website, and when we talk to the host families, we tell them that they're going to have to go through 8 or 9 steps, 8 or 9 different things that they have to do as a host family, and as a volunteer, it's as many as 13 different things that they have to do. And they don't happen all at once. When one happens, the next one comes. When that one happens, the next one comes. That way we're not downloading all of it all at once. And we have pushback from presidents of clubs that refuse to do this because it's too much work for them to do. I'm not going to be involved in Youth Exchange. I'm not going to do all of this. You guys went too much. This has happened more than once. Not very recently, but we've had a number of clubs because the president of the club has to do this as well, because they're in charge of the program in their club. They get vetted just like all of us get vetted, and we've had a number of them push back. No, I'm not going to give you all this information.
I think I'm back to that. Hader, I think I'm back to that. Wolf, if you can present, with some detail as far as like accessibility and what that whole process takes, so that we can then hand that off to the Rotary Youth Exchange team and let them see how they can incorporate that into this new program of going out and promoting Rotary Youth Exchange to clubs that have basically fallen off the map with regard to some of the programs, and for many of the reasons that we're talking about. But I do think if we present it well, we can make it look as if this is, it's a simple process. Here it is. Is it simple? That's what we need to know, whether or not, people can get full access to it. So can I suggest that this is a move that we can do, that Wolf, I can ask you to go ahead and just put together some more information about LiveScan that might be beneficial to the RYE as far as how they can access it, and what the time frame is, and what it is, that the detail is there, so that we can then look at that with regard to the Rotary Youth Exchange and be able to come up with a game plan to move forward.
Yep. It's actually part of the documents that goes out to our YVM volunteers, that actually has a link that's an continuously updated link through DOJ of who the operators are. And within our district, the 6 counties, we have about 45 LiveScan operators. So it just depends on where you are. There's 2 up in Del Norte, 12 in Humboldt, 4 in Mendocino, 7 in Napa, 20 in Sonoma, and 2 in Lake.
Great.
So again, it depends on where you are. And 4 in Mendocino, well, probably most of them are in Ukiah, which means if you're out at the coast, you've got to drive into Ukiah to get that. So I realize that depending on where you are, it can end up being very inconvenient. And yes, Heider, I know Youth Exchange, you've got the home visits, you've got the family orientation. So there are a lot more steps on the youth exchange side. So yes, we are just adding to that, which I totally recognize the challenge there. But again, I'm coming from student protection. What can we do, you know, our due diligence to make sure we're providing the safest possible environment for our host kids and our kids in our district, period.
You know, I want to, that's a great segue for a moment, Wolf. Hi, Hader, do you know anything with regard to the student, any update you can give us on the student in Ecuador?
She is, so what they've done, they've closed the schools and they're doing remote, teaching like they did during COVID. Unfortunately, our kid is of the age where her first 2 years of high school was like that. So she's having what we would call PTSD about that. She's not very happy about it. Brian reached out to her personally to talk to her. I've been in touch with the family. So what we did is says, okay, well, what's the next thing on your agenda over there? What's happening next in Ecuador? Oh, we're going to go to the Galapagos. Not many kids get to go there. And so what we're doing, we're trying to change her focus from, oh, it's kind of a little bit of a challenge right now. I'm home. I'm having to do Zoom school from home. I'm not out in the community as much as I was in the past. And I want to come back home because I don't want to Zoom the rest of my exchange, to focusing on what's coming up ahead. She just came back from a visit to the Amazon. They took all our kids to the Amazon and showed, you know, which she says was something she had never experienced before. Even with all the redwoods we have here, but it's a different kind of forest down there. And now they're doing this one. So it's just helping her with changing her focus. But obviously, if the parents say, we want her back, we bring her back. And the parents, this is their second kid. Their first kid went to Spain and she had to come back early because of COVID. And now their second kid, poor family, is in Ecuador during what's going on there right now. Things are calming down. The government is taking control. I don't know if any of you have done any background reading as to why this has happened and what, and so on and so forth. There are political reasons of the previous administration that didn't do much and let these gangs basically kind of take over, even though the one before them was very strict and really controlled things. So this new administration is having to really tighten down strongly on these gangs and their influence in society. So we're waiting. We're in constant contact with our people in Ecuador. They send us emails almost on a weekly basis, updating us as to what the situation is and in the different areas. We're very confident that they are on top of it. Just from the communication we're getting from them.
Great, thank you.
So we're on standby.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that greatly.
Hey, Tom, I just sent the live scan instructional documents and application to everybody via email.
Okay. Well, thank you. Very enlightening conversation. I know that we have some roadblocks to try and get over on it. And as things are developing out, Hader, as things are developing out with regard to this campaign that you're trying to put together, and being able to incorporate the information that Wolf is being able to provide, I think would be really beneficial in the long haul. So I thank you. I don't know that there's any final resolution at this point. I think that what we really had was an informational conversation here and an opportunity to try to put things together, to work together to see, what we can provide to the Rotary Youth Exchange.
One last plug. We're talking obviously a lot about Youth Exchange. Full vetting is required of all Interact advisors in clubs, and we're still sorely lacking clubs completing that. So as the governor line does their visits, and as you talk to your respective presidents, make sure that if they have an Interact club, they need to have full vetting, and the president probably ought to have full vetting as well, if they're active in Interact. So
and they can do just the live scan.
They would be doing the YVM, which is, it's the application, it's the live scan, and reference checks, and that's, and a YPA course. That's pretty much it.
Great. Yeah, I'll have to put words out because I just finished the 46th club just the other day. So anyhow, all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and I appreciate greatly the information.
You're
welcome.
And with that, then we're going to move to the financial report.
Harold, do you need me to stay for the financial part for youth exchange?
Well,
I don't mind.
That would be great, but we do disaster relief fund first. But
why don't we go to financials to get, so Hyder doesn't have to stay on?
Okay.
okay, let's
And then
do,
move to, can we change it up a little bit again? Kind of jump around?
Yes.
want to
I
do,
enjoy your folks' company. We don't have to work.
Mary, would you like me to share my screen?
Yes, please, thank you.
And then we'll just, Hyder, you can speak to Youth Exchange financials.
You're muted, Hyder.
If you have any questions, yes. Did you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks, Carol.
Can you see that screen?
Get a little larger. Yeah, there we go.
That's better.
So if I might do a little bit of information regarding the different structure we're using this year for charging clubs for youth exchange costs, is instead of having them pay for each orientation that we do, we totaled it up into one lump sum, $700. I forget what it was. And then we just invoice them at the beginning of the Rotary year. They pay us that. Then they have to deal with the registering for every event, paying for every event. And the response from the club for that was, that was very positive. Oh, thanks for doing that. You know, with one-time pay and you're done. So this is our first year doing that. We're going to see how that looks in our budget and profit and loss. And if we need to increase it for next year, we'll probably be making that decision sometime in the spring or very early summer before the new clubs sign up for the next year. And we'll just let them know, hey, we're bumping it up $50 or whatever. But that is one of the many steps that we're wanting to take to make youth exchange smoother, easier, less wrinkly than how much already it is, because the Department of State regulations that we have to jump through for our youth.
Okay, so this is, Hyder, you can just interrupt me, okay? Or I'll talk a little bit, and then you can talk if you know something I'm not privy to. So this is the balance sheet. There is $16,000 in receivables that are current. These are the receivables. I believe these are all Western Safari, right, Hyder?
Yes, that is correct. We invoice Western Safari participants so they can have a means of payment, because that gives them the link of how to pay. And a number of them are kids that are doing fundraisers, and as they get their fundraising money in, they pay it towards Western Safari, which is why there is a large receivable dollar amount. Some, their parents will just put on a credit card, done deal, but many kids, example, especially our gal from Uganda, and keep this between us, please. They're highly challenged families financially, and they have a lot of support from their clubs, their community, and so they're raising money and trickling in the cost of this Western Safari. And do all of you know what Western Safari is? Everybody know? Anybody doesn't? I can't see everybody's faces, so. Should I explain Western Safari, or do I not need to?
I don't think you need to. I think everyone knows what it is.
Penny was shaking her head. No, I don't know. What is that Western Safari? Yeah, just do a quick overview if you could, Hyder.
Yeah. So Western Safari is a trip that our district puts on that takes the kids after they come out of high school, and it's not just our district, it's from all over the United States. Plus, we've introduced it as a short-term exchange, as a camp. Europe has a big tradition of short-term exchange camps. So you're not really exchanging, you're just sending your kid to a Rotary camp. And Europe's very popular with that. So there is one on the East Coast that's by North Star District. There's one in San Diego that's sponsored by the San Diego Symphony. That's a 2-week Rotary Youth Exchange camp. And we are the third in the whole United States where these kids from all over the world, especially if they're sponsored by a Rotary Club, short-term exchange camp, they will send them to us for 2 weeks. So that's kind of who qualifies for this. Plus everybody that's on youth exchange, long-term, short-term, doesn't matter, all can be part of this trip. We've also thought about opening up to AFS and other youth exchange programs so they can come join us as well. It starts after high school ends, so I think about mid-June or thereabouts, and they all meet in San Francisco. They get on a bus, they do a San Francisco thing, tourism. This is all tourism, obviously. And then they go down to LA. They go to Paramount, Disney, Great America, Venice Beach, Santa Monica, that whole Southern California experience that most of the world thinks all of California is, but obviously we're not. Then from there, they go to the Grand Canyon, do the whole Grand Canyon thing. From there, they go to Vegas, do a Vegas thing. And from Vegas, they go to somewhere near Bakersfield, camping in that area. And this is a combination of staying in hotels and camping. We have a trailer that we tow behind us. It's got camping equipment, stoves. So these kids get to camp, they get to cook and clean and all that kind of stuff when they're not staying in hotels. And from there, they go to Yosemite, spend time in Yosemite. From Yosemite, then they come back to San Francisco and go home. And the trip takes 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Clark, have I missed anything?
Just a whole lot of fun and memories.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
We just started the process, Mark started the process of turning on billing and payments through QuickBooks. And so that's why we're doing the invoicing, or that's why he's doing the invoicing this way where people can pay directly. So that makes the process a little bit better. Here's the comparative balance sheet this year versus last year at December 31st.
Oh.
And these reports are all available to all of you, obviously.
And if you go back to the balance sheet, please, Carol, the reason the assets versus liabilities is very different than last year is because this year we collected all the money up front for the orientations. Our biggest expenses are the San Francisco trip, which has already happened in October. The second biggest expense is the country reveal, which happens in late February, where all the kids get to find out what country they're going to, because it's a surprise to all of them. They all get to give us what they'd like, but that's not necessarily what they get. And then the next biggest expense after that is district conference, but that one the clubs have to pay for because we cannot pin down how much it's going to cost us, because it could be in different places throughout the district or even outside of the district. So that's the only item that the clubs have to pay for in addition to the annual cost. And the inbound orientation, which already happened back in August, that's where all the inbounds come in. We give them orientation. That's also part of the expense. Thank you, Carol.
And this is the profit and loss. So this is for the first half of the year. These are the totals, and I'm going to show you the breakdown by class in a minute.
We also provide a $10,000 total matching grant for the youth exchange that are outbound. Usually each kid gets somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 to help pay towards their flight, their flight ticket, because those are expensive because they have to be open-ended. They tend to be anywhere from 2,000 to some, I think one of them was even $5,000 or $3,000, $4,000, something like that, because it's an open-end ticket.
Where would I see that?
I don't know where Mark would put the grant, whether that just comes out of our treasury. I don't know where he puts it. So we just have to search for that. And so we have a committee of 4 people who these kids have to apply for this grant. We get back to this, okay, you guys qualify, and this is how much you're going to get. They have to raise as much money as the grant. So if it's $1,000, they have to raise 1,000. If it's 2,000, they have to raise 2,000, and then we match it.
I would like to see a little bit more. I'm just going to go on record of saying I'd like to see a little bit more detail.
When the payments go out, they go out.
Not on that specifically, just so that I could see the ins and outs of that.
Okay, so the grant gets paid to the travel group that we work with that buys all the tickets for the kids. We just cut them one payment and send it over to them and tell them which kid that applies towards. Because we all go through It's Your World Travel, because they're the ones that help with the visa process, the ticket process, and my gosh, what work they had to do when we had to bring all these kids back during COVID, to arrange all those flights for all these kids that are coming back while they were getting canceled and all that kind of stuff. So we cut them one check, and then we give them the list. Here are the kids that this goes towards from our district, and here's how many dollars they each get. So you'll see a one payment to It's Your World Travel. That is the grant amount.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, Hyder, is that I don't see money coming in for that. You said that kids are so it's kind of a matching fund from Youth Exchange,
Yeah,
right?
they don't give us the money. They raise their own money, and their counselor tells us how much they've raised.
I see. So it's not actually coming through our books.
No. That just complicates things way too much.
Okay. All right.
It's an honor system between the counselor and the kid to let us know how much they've raised. And then we will send an equal amount to that to Western Safari towards their expenses. So if they wanted $2,000, but they only raised 1,000, then we only give them 1,000. If they wanted 1,000, if they only wanted 8 and they raised 1,000, they only get 800. Okay. So that doesn't go through our books. This is just money that we have internally that we've raised from our golf tournament and other items that we then just send to It's Your World Travel.
Okay.
And we try to keep it as simple as possible for everybody.
So I don't know whether people on the board want to see this in detail. My feeling is it's very difficult to show it on the screen. This is the budget to actual by class. It's probably better for you guys to do it on your own computer so that you can look at the things you want to, but this is budget to actual by class. So right now we have a total income in for the year of 45,000. We have expenses of 15 with a net of 30. And most of the activity will happen in the second half of the year. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or has any questions for Hyder. Or Hyder, if you have any comments about this.
The matching grants have not been paid yet already because they don't actually, the kids don't even know where they're going yet. So like you said, most of the cost happens towards the tail end of the year.
Correct.
So by they have to pay for their tickets, I think by about June, May, June. So that's when the grant goes out. And that's also district conference, which is another big expense. And then we've got the country reveal, which is coming up pretty soon. And of course, the hosting that continues. Because right now we've had first and second host families have been paid for. The third host families will be coming up here pretty soon.
Okay.
This is the background check and so on.
Any questions from anyone? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you to the district for all the support and help financially, emotionally, and physically that you folks provide Youth Exchange. I know all of you are involved in many other Rotary programs, and we truly appreciate the support we get from you folks, allowing us to use the Zoom, the grants that you give to the program, the hours and hours that you put in to keep our program going is appreciated and very motivating to the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Mary, do you want to go back and now do things in normal order? Bye, Hyder.
Bye. Bye, folks. Have a healthy, safe, prosperous, and good New Year.
See you, Hyder.
Thank
You too. Thank you.
Yeah, where were we, Mary?
I was muted, sorry. We can go in whatever order you wish, Tom. I did get an email just now from Dirk. I could let you know for DRF, he said he's not attending. There's no new transactions or no new disasters and nothing to report.
There are a couple of transactions, actually.
That was his, those were his thoughts just now. So I'm just,
Let's just continue things in normal order.
want to go back to disaster relief and start over like we normally
Okay.
would.
Let's do that.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to start with the financial reports. Not much has happened, but a little bit happened. So this is the balance sheet. It hasn't changed a whole lot since last time. We did have a $1,000 donation. And that was a donation that came in with a check. And we had one $50 fee to our friends at the DOJ for our charity registration fee. So that was paid and has been cashed. Really good news. And then this is our asset tracking sheet. So not much change since last time, as you can see. We have one check and one donation. So we're at 118,000 total. That's it. And the good news is no current disasters.
That's always good.
Any questions on the financial information?
Looks good. Can we make a motion to approve the financial report on the disaster relief fund?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Great. First and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, opposed? So moved.
Okay, so the Registry of Charitable Trusts, the DRF fund didn't have the same experience that the district had. The renewal now shows current in process per the DOJ website. And I checked, and the check for the renewal fee, that $50 did clear on January 2nd. So that's very good news. I'm waiting for it to flip over and just say current instead of current in process, but I don't anticipate any problems with that. And then there's a discussion item here. Dustin.
Yeah, so typically this is the time where like the surplus of my year comes up for my year as governor comes up for like I don't know. If there was a surplus for my year, then I can distribute it likewise. Like, is that where we discuss this, or?
No, that's not. And we actually have already done that. We're talking about Jennifer's year. We're talking about, but that will be under the finance agenda.
Okay.
Tom or Dustin, did you want to say anything about, I don't know, this was on the agenda. I didn't put it in here, discuss disaster preparedness. think we talked about using some of our unallocated funds or even funds that were allocated to some of the counties to spend that money for disaster preparedness.
This was a carryover topic from last quarter. We were going to revisit it today.
I think given the fact we don't have Dirk with us too, that I mean, I would probably suggest that we put this off too, and let's just anticipate that we're not going to have any disasters now. And maybe, Jim, this is something that we could pick up as we get into your year, where we can have some sort of a strategy to talk about what could we do to talk about disaster preparedness. And I don't know if you have room in your district training assembly that we might be able to even have a little breakout and talk about the actual work of the disaster preparedness program.
So I'll pop in here just real quick, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think probably the reason this was on there is the disaster relief fund does allow for funds to be used for preparedness and education programs. A lot of the clubs forget that that's available. And so one of the things that that we want to kind of continually do is to sort of remind those club presidents, as you look at Carol's allocation of the restricted funds by county, that there is money still set aside in those particular counties, and they can use it, that the clubs can choose to use that for preparedness and education. And the actual best time to do preparedness and education is when there's not a disaster in play. So I think that it's a case of continuing to remind them that those monies are available. It's always been the AGs and the club presidents that kind of can decide on some of those restricted funds. And I think that a lot of the clubs don't even know they have this money available for this, or even know that it can be used for education and preparedness.
Question for you, Jennifer. Do you think that, and I guess this is for the group, I mean, would it be better for us to actually come up with an official program that would be able to be incorporated to the different clubs, something that gives them some direction, and try to figure out, well, what kind of an allocation of dollars would go back out to the disaster preparedness program versus, just, I mean, it just seems to me like we should probably be organized on the amount of money that a club could use. And the way that we have this set up right now, you've got the grants or the Mendocino, Napa, certain areas have dollars available in those areas, but we're not necessarily, I wouldn't think that we're looking at pulling large quantities of the reserve for the disaster relief. And given the fact of all the disasters that we've dealt with in previous years, more recent years, it would seem to me that we'd want to be able to have some sort of an organized program that if a club chose to do it, we could allocate, whatever, if it's $500 or $1,000 for them to do that training session. Just throwing it out.
Yeah, I guess my personal opinion on this, just from the intent of it is something that, as we found with the Humboldt earthquake that we had last December, it's very helpful to have some money already in there when those disasters do occur. So it's kind of a balancing act between having the money available if a disaster occurs, either in the general, unallocated, unrestricted funds within the disaster relief, and also what is already restricted by county, having those funds available, because when a disaster occurs, you need to have quick access to money, as we've found so many times in the past. But I do think that I don't know if it's necessarily that and it's just my opinion, and obviously it's a board discussion and decision. I don't know if it's necessarily that there's a policy in place as far as that goes. Maybe there should be, as to what percentage of funds can be used for education and preparedness. I don't know if it's so much having a real strict policy, or if it's just making sure that the clubs, like through the annual president's training, that they understand that this fund is available. The other thing is that you can't just pull one, I think you can't just pull one club out of a county that wants to do something for their specific community, but not allow the other clubs within that county. So there would need to be some discussion on what that looks like, right? So, but it is something that I've tried, like last year, I tried to make sure that the AGs and the clubs were aware that the funds were available, that if the clubs in a particular area wanted to come together and do some sort of education or preparedness, that there was funds available. Whether there should be a strict policy, I don't know, and that would be a board discussion, but.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the numbers that are allocated to specific areas, you know, I guess that's the part. I mean, if we look at the non-restricted funds and we were to pull the training out of the non-restricted funds, I mean, we've only got what, 10,770 in those funds.
It's because we seriously used them during the earthquake.
Sure. Yeah.
Carol's got her hand up.
Yeah, Carol.
So this might be an opportunity for a smaller group to get together specifically to say, how much should we not spend? In other words, if 34,000, you know, if all the clubs in Mendocino got together and said, yes, we want to do $34,000 of preparation work, we'd like to be reimbursed for that, we probably would say that's not a good idea. So the committee might come up with everything and say, let's keep 50% and not allocate use of 50% of all those funds, or let's keep some sort of baseline in there, and then maybe put it out to the group, say to Mendocino, hey, maybe we'll make $15,000 or $10,000 of that available, and to say to the clubs in Mendocino, you could apply for this if you want, you know, for a period of time. In other words, I agree with Jennifer. I think there needs to be some sort of guidelines. It can't just be willy-nilly, you know.
Absolutely. I would think that, again, we could work with Dirk to see if he has the ability to put together what he would suggest would work for training. And on this, I mean, we're not necessarily talking about just training for Rotarians, but we're talking about opportunities to share something back with the public in each of these different areas. And 50%. I know that was just a random number in that, but that would seem pretty extreme for the dollars. For instance, Mendocino, $34,000. I mean, then 50% of that back over to a training program. I think the program would have to be pretty organized in order to make something like that actually work. And that's why I would love to be able to see if Dirk could put together some sort of an idea as far as what would be a good training program. Do we make it a program that is, given back over to the public? And how would we do that? And what could we anticipate that the cost would be?
I'll give you just a quick example, and it may not even necessarily be a training program. One of the things that we did here in Lake County with the fire relief funds that we had, as far as the disaster preparedness, when the fires came through, you lose your cell phone and a lot of your communication. And so we actually, the Fire Relief Fund purchased a bunch of these kind of handheld radios that worked out as a notification system if there was a fire that was coming, and we made those available to residents. So sometimes preparedness comes in different formats, and it really is probably different by county and even by community to a certain extent. So there are probably some disaster preparedness programs out there and materials that you could purchase, but most of that is education. But I think that where I could see this, I definitely agree with Carol, and I think I agree with you that Dirk could probably come back, put together a committee and sort of come up with what percentage of your funds, because you got to remember, like the Napa funds, those are donations that came in during the fires that were allocated for Napa County, for Mendocino County, so on and so. So that's why those funds are restricted. But let's say the clubs in Mendocino decided that they wanted to get together to do some sort of a program, like with the handheld radio things that we did here in Lake County. They can use this fund actually as a fundraising aspect as well. So if they wanted to raise money for that program, it could potentially the disaster relief fund can be that 501c3 for a specific program or project that they're wanting to do for disaster relief and education, preparedness and education. So I think that there's some cool things that can be done with this disaster relief fund that are currently not being done. And I think a lot of it has to do with just education, that the clubs and the presidents and the AGs are aware that this is there. And it's not just something for when there's an earthquake or a fire that kicks in. Carol.
And I also point out, notice that Mendocino has 2 columns, one business grants, one general. Napa has the same, 2 columns, a business column and a general. So.
And
So
I'll dovetail off that. It's just, people don't realize that this is available to them for any disaster. It's not just earthquakes and fires. And that's fires is actually like high and tight on the list. So that's something that needs to be like known to all.
So question here for the purpose of the minutes. If we want Dirk to put together a training plan, training program of whatever, who is going to reach out to
I
him?
can reach out to Dirk.
He's not here. Okay. Thank you.
Well, the idea of having people do a fundraiser to contribute money, since DRF is a 501c3, could contribute money, and then the fund itself, the district could match that money to do something like this. That's Jennifer, you said that, and I think that's a great idea. It's a very, very, it's a fun thing.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
All
been
right.
it's been requested that there's a list that comes out of the qualified disasters in the chat.
Yeah, I think both Clark and I thought that was a good idea. Just including, obviously you can't think of everything, but just a list of disasters that would qualify for that kind of funding.
Yeah. Again, I think that that's a good conversation to have over with Dirk and
Right.
There's
Exactly.
probably some guidance from Rotary International on that. Just
Right.
They've got the disaster, and that might be something that you might stumble across, Jim or Christine, in your training, your governor training, because they've got disaster relief funds. So there might even be some guidelines coming from RI on that.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I'll take that as an action item.
great.
Okay. So are we finished with?
Yeah, if I can get we can close this portion of the program, if I can get a motion.
Motion to close, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Second, Christine.
Christine, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We're moved on to the next.
Finance, right?
Finance.
So we're actually reopening the meeting. It opened at 9:45, closed at 9:58, reopening now at 10:15.
Okay, and we are going to start. Oh, Dustin.
Oh, yeah. Dustin, you get to open this.
Yes, my favorite. All right, let's open this up at 10:16. Thank y'all for being here. And let's move on to info item 1. I don't know that we have any guests to introduce. So
I think they've been introduced already.
perfect.
Okay.
I showed up at 9:05, so I didn't see that. Anyway, info item 1. Let's go.
So the financial statements. So here's the balance sheet. Kind of normal things here. We did open a bank account for the Rotary Peace Conference 2025. This is actually a bank account that exists in Windsor Rotary Community Foundation because it's a 501c3. We're showing it on the books here because the money will be on behalf of the district. There hasn't been any activity in that account yet, but the account was opened. Here are the program account balances. We've already talked about some of the youth exchange stuff. Ryla had $4,700 as of December 31st. There's been very little change in our reserves, checking and savings, and we'll be talking about the results of Jennifer's year in a few minutes and looking at what we want to do with those reserves, if anything. Here's event deposits, which is prepaid funds that have been spent for events that won't happen in this Rotary fiscal year. I'll give you a schedule of that in a minute. Payables, credit card debt, $99. I'm just going to keep going. Stop me if you want me to stop. Here are the event deposits. So this is what we have. It's the $17,000 that was left for Doubletree during Doug Johnson's year. And the facilities rental, this is a deposit that Jim put down for the district conference for the next Rotary year. So those are both prepaid items at this point.
Farrell, a question. I mean, would my conference also not be covered in there?
Your
For the
conference
dollars.
has already been, the money that we've spent for deposits for your conference are going to happen in this Rotary year. So I've
Okay.
already moved them over so that they show on the profit and loss statement.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
not considered prepaid anymore. This is a credit that I owe Jim O'Grady the next time he submits expenses. Jim, I owe you $379. Don't spend it all in one place. Here's the income and expense for the first 6 months of the year. So the dues is the same. The only real event that we've had so far has been the foundation dinner. So that's the only district event that's on there so far. Here's the income from projects and programs. That $800 was prepaid from a club who wanted to prepay for a RILA participant. So they gave us some money. Here's the money we got in for grants. We'll go down and look at this split up by class in a minute. I might as well just do that now. It's easier to see it if we look at it split up by class. Okay, so you can see that this is the RI subsidy, which is $13,000. So we have a total income, including the district grants right now, of $271,000. And these are the expenses. I'm just going to scroll down through these gently. This $1,000 is $1,000 right here that we gave to the district paid to Rotex to support Rotex, and $8,000 to support youth exchange. And then these funds over here, this $14,000 is money that actually went out from these individual programs. District training, so you won't see many expenses for district training expenses yet for district DTA because it hasn't happened yet. Now, the good news is you can see this negative number here for insurance, and you may have noticed on the agenda that we talked at our last board meeting about requesting a refund. We had paid about $4,000 in insurance. The board decided we could cancel that policy. We did and requested a refund, and we got back $2,800. Well, I mean, we got back 2,000 something, so we ended up with 2,800 negative. So our net operating income so far is 205,000. This is budget to actual. And so I'm not going to go over this in detail unless somebody has a specific question. We seem to be on track. Most of the activity for what's going to happen in the district, we have a flurry of activity with dues billing at the first half of the year. Then we have the foundation dinner that happens in the fall. And then everything else happens woo in the second half of the year. We've got district training assembly, district conference, and some other stuff. So a lot of stuff happens later. Grants, all the grants come in, the grant requests. Any questions? It's awfully quiet.
That's good.
So here's the, so I talked about event deposits. We talked about this insurance refund. As always, if anybody has any questions or you look at this, you know, next week and you say, that looks really strange. What could that be? All you have to do is call me and I will walk you through whatever it is. Action item number 2, review youth exchange. We walked through that with Hyder, so we're not going to do that again.
You want to get approval on the minutes, Carol? I mean, on the financials first?
Sorry, yes. So Dustin, you should ask that.
I'll make a motion.
Is that Tom?
Yeah.
Jennifer will second.
Thanks, Jennifer.
All opposed? All right. Motion approved.
So this is interesting. So Jennifer just commented to me that, so I did a reserves review for Jennifer's year, and Jennifer is saying to me it should have been for Dustin's year because we're always a year behind.
Yeah, it has to go through, yeah, because as I was just sitting here thinking on that. So if you remember last year, this time we did Doug's because it has to go through the, what is it, the audit, the finance, whatever that thing, it's not called an audit anymore, the financial review. So
It's a
last
review. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer.
last year at this time we did Doug's, and if you remember, it was like $40,000, 10 went, or 50,000 or something, and 10 went to reserves and 40 or something went to Polio Plus. That was Doug's request.
50 went to Polio Plus.
50, yeah, it was a huge amount. So that was last year, and that was Doug's reserve. So mine is just the number that you gave me the other day, Carol, is more of just kind of for an informational thing. As I was sitting, and I'm sorry I didn't catch that earlier, because as I was sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, wait a minute, it's Dustin's that he actually gets to comment on kind of what he would like to see, because we haven't
Thank
done
you.
So unfortunately, I'm not, so that's funny because I went over this with Ashley and she didn't say a thing, and so my mistake. Okay, I am not prepared to do that because I would have to go through and look at, I'll have to pull up Dustin's stuff that I could do while you talk about something else, and we could circle back about this if you want. How about if we do that?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't catch that, Carol. When you sent me the email the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I didn't go over budget. That was the only thing I was focused on.
Yeah, okay.
There was actually a little bit of a reserve.
Thank you for
Okay,
catching
well,
that. Yes, that'd be great. Let's circle back.
I know that the information for your year, Dustin, has been posted, so I just need to go plug it into that sheet. And let me go, let me finish this last thing, and then I'll, you know, Tom can go on and talk about other things, and I can just do this in the background and we can come back. Is that okay?
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. And then let me just say on the DOJ Registry of Charitable Trusts, The spurious, since the last time the board met, the spurious records have been closed. Our status looks like current in progress. That's what it says on the site. I want all of you to think good thoughts in Senator Mike McGuire's direction, because his office was instrumental in having somebody in his office poke the people in the delinquency department at DOJ to get them to respond. And who knows if that had not happened, whether we would be in the position we're in now. I will say that we are not out of the woods yet. We need to have that status be changed to current. And as soon as it is, we are at current, not a tax exempt organization. So we have to go back to, and I have to apply to the Franchise Tax Board to get our tax exempt certification reinstated. But they won't talk to us until our DOJ status says current. So that's our status. Okay, so how about if we table this and move over to the Board of Directors? Does that work, people?
Good with
Yep,
you,
works for
Dustin?
me.
So we're moving over to the board meeting?
Yeah, we'll go back to the board meeting.
Okay.
So, and I know that item, we have, Jennifer, and thank you so much for working alongside with regard to the environmental committee and the materials that you sent over for the form smarts and all. And that had been added to the website. Notification has been sent out to every one of the clubs with regard to applying for the $600 up to $600. I managed to talk to quite a few clubs about this process, and it seems like there's multiple clubs that are very aware of it. I don't know how many have actually come in yet with regard to forms submitted, and I guess Barbara might have had a better understanding on some of that, but what I did hear was that there's not that many.
Come in. I haven't seen any come in yet. I think a lot of it probably has to do with the weather.
Right, okay. But at least we have the material is very clearly put out right now on the district website on how to apply, and I think that that's so we should see. And have heard nothing but positive things from multiple different clubs as far as their wanting to participate in that. And there is a deadline on it for May 31st. So time's wasting, and I'll just keep pressing on that with the presidents as well.
Excuse me, Tom, we still need to accept the financials on this board meeting report too.
Well,
The financial report that she gave that we approved on the financial agenda. Am I wrong?
Oh, I thought we did that, no?
Well, we do it on the finance and we always do it again on the board.
Do we need to finish the financial side of this? Are we waiting on to finish that and then we approve it?
I don't know, Dustin, do you know?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
We just tabled the financial reports while Carol gets an opportunity to look up your numbers.
Sure.
And so the approval that I would have on an action item on the board is to accept the financial reports. However,
Let's pen that until we get Carol's. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
All right.
That's fine.
And so I don't know, Jennifer, do you have anything else to throw out with regard to the environmental committee? I think we're pretty much set there without any reports in.
I'm good. We should start getting a flurry of district grant final reports coming in, and hopefully start seeing some of the environmental ones coming in. And Tom, we'll let you know when we.
Okay. That'd be great. Michael, you had something or no? I know that can I place Jack into this next have Jack set in here before we do the DGE reports and talk a little bit about membership, Jack?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So just a quick update on where we are with membership. We started off the year with 1871 in the district, and last number that I got was yesterday, and we're at 1877. So we've had a surge of 6 members. But no, the interesting news is as we're exploring, or at least I should say that the North Napa Club is exploring the establishment of a satellite, because they are
Napa Sunrise.
was that Napa Sunrise, or was that
Yes,
North
Napa Sunrise.
Sunrise? Okay, and I think they are the largest of the clubs, aren't they, Tom?
Yes, yeah, they have a 101 official and 105 considering 4 honoraries that they have in there.
Yeah, they just beat Sebastopol. But anyway, so one of the things that they've found is that you've almost got a couple of different like tiers, financial tiers that are starting to establish themselves in the club. And they want to be able to offer an alternative to their current, let's say, like meeting place. And so it's an exploration that's going on, and it's kind of interesting. They just started the discussions on this, and so more is to follow. Tom, anything that we can add to that?
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing because they're trying to, and they're not alone. Other clubs are caught in the same situation. They were saying that their costs for the meetings, the cost for club members, just general club members, is somewhat high, and that their hope is that this satellite would actually become a service-based club that would be meeting independent. But I thought that there were some good conversations. Jack and I sat in with them and answered some different questions. And what they were saying is to try to have members of the satellite have to interact with the actual Sunrise Club on occasion, that they would have to drop in. They're back to trying to form some sort of a better outline, if you will, based on the conversations that we had last time out. But they're pretty adamant that they would like to try to do something that's going to be later in the day than their 7 a.m. start over at Silverado. And so, it was interesting that some said, oh, well, we could start at 8 a.m. But
Yeah,
one of
exactly.
the problems they're having are some of the senior members who would like to be part of this satellite and still involved in service projects are saying, I don't want to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. And for them to think that they could shift that to 8 o'clock in the morning is a little out there. So anyhow, we did inform them that the satellite club would have the ability to draft its own bylaws, to draft its own meeting schedules and other things. And I think that they're very enthusiastic. They've got a great committee. I believe there were probably a half a dozen people that were in on the call that Jack and I sat in on. And it looks very promising that they will do more. I'd also throw out one other thing with regard to the membership side of it, that we have been seeing pretty steady, one here, one there, one there, of people that have submitted through Rotary International. And we have been passing those individuals back off to the clubs. And wherever we can figure out that someone is looking for a specific time frame, then we can make those recommendations to those clubs that can fit the time frame that they have. So that's been a very positive experience, I think, as well. So
Yeah, it has been. Let's see, getting back to the satellite thing, is one interesting aspect of it is that the only real difference between a satellite club and the host club is, since they're going to have their own bylaws, they have essentially their own financials, their own board. The only real difference between them is that they don't have a club president. They have a club chair. So it's the satellite chair. But where you have, let's say, the host club is saying this is a way to to perhaps cast a wider net in looking for members, they may be surprised in seeing that what they're actually doing is they're establishing a brand new club that they didn't expect, and that's all for the better.
Yeah, and Jack, as you know, this is Christine. I
Mhm.
founded a satellite club here, and if they need any advisement, or you do, I don't think you probably do. You know what you're doing, but I'm happy to help advise in any way, because
Yeah,
it's a really fun experience, and it's a, you know, we became a club even during COVID in a little over a year, so
exactly.
very exciting.
There was also another one that started up in the other district, and
That's
that
right.
was the Novato club, formed the Novato Evening.
Yeah,
And
it's a
they went
great
through their
way to expand a club for sure.
exactly. So I think that's what we have going on in membership.
Clark has a question.
So some of you guys might know I've reached out to a few of you about it, but Ashley Deal, the former district treasurer, and she is now a member of the Fortuna Sunrise Club, have been actively trying to establish a satellite club in Eureka for the last 8 months or so, and we are getting a ton of pushback. Clubs are not interested. They think that we're trying to steal members, the younger members that they have established, that they are afraid they're all going to retreat to the satellite. They have a very hard time understanding that the satellite is an extension of the club and that all membership would count towards their own club's membership. And we are just getting a lot of skepticism, and just they're not interested in it. So at this point, we have given up on efforts to do a satellite club, and are waiting it at this point basically until one of us has enough time to establish a brand new club, which has been really disappointing, because it feels like this satellite club is an opportunity to grow membership within a current club and to open more doors to a current club, but we are not getting any kind of support for that. And so it does feel like it's an education challenge. And even though we've had those conversations with clubs, I don't know if maybe it would be more beneficial to have those conversations coming from the DG line. That sounds like you guys are pretty well versed in, especially Christine, pretty well versed in what it really is. But I would just, in my experience up here, it's great to hear that it's going better in the South, but my experience up here has been that people are pretty hard. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Clark,
be
can we
happy to try and work with you and with Jack and with Christine to try and
Yeah,
see if
let's
we
come
can
up
sit
with a
in
plan.
and add some information back into it. And matter of fact, we could actually reach out and ask for the people that are really the pilots in the program for Napa Sunrise to sit in as well, because they've got a great rationale and a great reason for why they're doing it. So Clark, be happy to try and if we can set something up. More than likely it would be in the Zoom world, but that would be a really solid conversation. And if it's the club president, or if you even have the naysayers that would be willing to sit in just to have the discussion on it, I think that would be really
And
beneficial.
let's include Roanoke Park Katati also, someone from that club, since they sponsored us, and they were the ones that really benefited, you know, as the sponsors.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay. That's what I've got.
Thank you, Jack. Jim, DGE report. Show us that suntan. You're on mute.
Yeah, so it's not going to be shown on screen, so I'll just read through it. Oh, here it is. Sorry. So yeah, I'll read down my my bullet points here. One is the peace conference. Our committee, for those on the board who may not recall, this was which was mentioned earlier, back in 2019, we had the DoubleTree, and our district's committed to $17,000. I think we're kind of at a tipping point here. We are working with 7 other districts, several other districts, much more than a couple of the other districts who are want to participate but haven't participated as strongly. Right now we're hoping to have 300 to 350 Rotarians plus 150 Rotary youth participating from the 8 districts. In order to do that, we're going to need commitments from all 8 districts, both mainly in funding. Our district's already committed 17,000. Even though the overall event should break even, there's some upfront costs of about $126,000, less the 17 that's already been there. And which comes down to about $13,000 per district upfront cost. That cost should be reimbursed. We've done all the numbers, and if we have if all things fall into place, we won't lose any money. But that would be the risk that we have so far on that. The alternative to that is if the districts don't want to put up that kind of money up front, and there is kind of a time crunch because folks are putting their budgets together for next year, we would need to go back to doing a more simple conference of 100 participants from our district alone. Our district members have been very supportive. We have about 8 or 10 actively on our committee right now, helping to put this together. So that's it. That's where we are on the peace conference. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I actually have a question for you, Jim. Is there any part of first of all, I think this is still just such a cool idea. So thank you for all the time and efforts that you're putting in on this. I think it's really a neat thing for our district to be taking the lead on. A question with your committee, is there anyone or has there been any discussion about sponsorships?
Oh, yes.
Because the sponsorships can help the sponsorships can really help on those front end costs. And I would think that there would be a lot of organizations that would really want to be hanging their trailer onto this truck.
We have a very detailed budget. And I mean, the outline of the event is very strong. And that does include about $50,000 in sponsorships that we would have to gain. We have a sponsorship committee, a chairperson, very well organized. We haven't approached people for sponsors, but that's part of that budget. So if as an example, that 126,000, part of the reimbursement will come from sponsorships, $50,000 of it. The other will come from the revenue, the registration that comes in. So the answer is yes, of course, that it's sponsored. Everything's really well detailed. This isn't the forum to show it all, but we do have that. And Carol actually is our finance chair and treasurer.
So I guess my question is if you were able to get those $50,000 in sponsorships now, a lot of companies will write those checks earlier because they understand that there's upfront costs. So if you get the 50,000 in sponsorships now, then does that reduce the ask? And this I don't know. Does it reduce the ask to the districts to, $5,000 a district or $3,000 for the upfront expenses? Does that help defer some of that and make it a little easier pill for the districts to swallow?
Sure, it would reduce the risk by that amount of money. But the way the question's phrased, if you go out and get the sponsors, it's who's going to go out and get the sponsors. And the wheels haven't turned as quickly as we would have hoped to put this into place. So I don't see us getting sponsors, in the next week.
Got it.
Carol?
Yeah, I think that we are a year out from this conference. I think that the contributions perhaps from other districts or sponsorships are going to be coming over the next 6 to 9 months. I will just say that, yes, we do not yet have a revised contract from the DoubleTree. As Jim mentioned, the amount is going to be significant. And my concern is that that contract is going to have to be signed way before we have money. And that means there's a financial commitment way before we have money. And I just want to make sure that the board is aware of that and that we know that we are stepping up for increased liability. And we might want to look at a way to have the other districts kind of share that. So, the question comes up from a legal, Jennifer, I know you've been dealing, and many on the board have been dealing with attorneys on this already with DoubleTree. I think we need to be completely transparent about all this. We're doing a lot of work. Jim has worked just tirelessly on this, and it is looking really good. And we also just have to be very careful how we proceed.
Yeah, that's the thank you, Carol. That's the crunch, and without getting too much in the weeds, but a little bit of it's important for the board to understand. We've been trying to work with the hotel since August to get a written contract that expands this to 350 people, 350 attendees. And we have not gotten that yet. And I would say we're making progress, but who knows? Along with that, we've been proceeding on the assumption that we would get an expanded contract with the hotel, and the 20 or so committee members from the various districts have done tremendous work in putting this together. We've got some good speakers lined up, breakout sessions, House of Friendship, vendors, some social events. We have this Santa Rosa Symphony wanting to do a presentation at their cost, along with some very, very good speakers, including several Peace Scholars, all committed to being there. So the event, we're all pretty confident. What's our angst is now really twofold, is getting the exact numbers and a contract from the hotel. But then, because it's been delayed so long, is getting back to the districts, including our own, and saying, okay, here's the money we need up front to ensure that this is going to happen. The 2016 and 2020 peace conferences in Southern California, who we kind of modeled this after, did not lose money. They made money. And we're emulating that and are fairly confident that we will have the same result. But as all of us know, there's no guarantee. So there need to be some, there's going to be money needed up front. So we're kind of betwixt and between. Carol?
So I was talking to Ashley the other day, and I said, so if you were going to try to, one of my concerns is we're dealing with 7 other districts here, as Jim mentioned, is how do we get the other districts on the hook for this as well? Because we don't want just 5130 to be on the hook for this large amount of money. She suggested that we have each of the districts read and say, this is the amount of money that I'm willing to be responsible for. and, and your fair share. But the question is, so is Jim gonna go to the DGEs in all those districts? And did the DGEs even have the power to bind those districts? My take on it would be probably not. So there's just some questions that are, because the amount of money is, in the $100,000 range, it needs to be talked about and it needs to be figured out.
Just
Yeah,
one,
because
just
they-
one quick
they-
question. The newer members on the board here, do they know about the 17,000 or are they?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. We need context for this whole
I
thing.
mean, I don't know if Michael and Darren, because they probably need to have it so that they, as this goes on in the next year, they know. But the fact that their DoubleTree's already sitting on $17,000 of our money. So I don't know if they know that already. Maybe they do. So just throwing that in for the good of the order.
I mean,
Jennifer, it was discussed during your term. So
right.
I sat
Clark,
in
I
on
don't know
those
if you
meetings.
know what's going on, or Jack or Darren, but basically during Doug Johnson's year, he had looked to create a conference at the DoubleTree, and due to the time frame for cancellation, we were committed actually to 37,000, was it? Initially, I'm putting those numbers around, but and then we proceeded under Jennifer's leadership. We proceeded to reach out to a couple of attorneys. One attorney in particular, Michael Fish, past district governor 5150, who's now a member up here, and Michael had some interaction with the hotel. We continued to have interaction with the hotel. The hotel then said, okay, well, if you're willing to do another event here, they would bring those the costs down to, they would hold the $17,000 that was given to them as a down payment for the program, and they would apply it to another event. Hence, the district chose to go ahead, and Jim spearheading it, to go ahead and create a peace conference. And from that, really, Jim, you get a lot of the credit here. I mean, for actually pulling together all of these other districts to come in and do this. So that's why we had the $17,000 sitting there in the bank account for DoubleTree, and we're just trying to figure out ways that we can use that money, continue to use that money, and then also to be able to reach out to others to try and fulfill the total on it. So that's where we are. That's when we talk about $17,000. It is the down payment for the district conference that was supposed to happen back during Doug Johnson's year, and this is a carryover for that.
And
So, thank
we
you,
do
Tom.
actually have a contract in place right now in the neighborhood of about 30,000, which we are committed to.
Yeah,
That 17 goes against.
yeah, so let me say a couple of more things. I think this is for everyone's benefit. Yes, we already have a contract. So if we want to say, let's drop the other 7 districts and let's just do a 100-person conference for peace, that's doable. And the risk is the 17,000, which is already in the bank. And we could, nobody seemed to want to do a small peace conference when this was introduced. It got big fast. It's been great on the planning side. Like I said, that's solid. On the hotel side, it's still been a struggle, and that's where we are today. I was in Orlando, Florida for the International Assembly. And I think this is important. Stephanie Urchek, our new president, as a lot of you past district governors know, they do their theme talk. Well, she gave her theme talk, which is the magic of Rotary, but her emphasis was peace. She wants every district to be involved in something big for peace. And here we are already planning this for almost a year. It's right there, is what she's asking for. And along with the other districts. So I think that, and there hasn't been anyone I've spoken to in our district that is not gravitating towards this. Having said that, there's this financial risk. We could say as a board, the heck with it. Let's just do a small conference as is, you know, with the contract that Jennifer worked so hard on honing into, you know, a year ago, or we can continue to move forward on this larger scale. You know, we've invited Jennifer Jones, Stephanie Urchek. I had dinner with Mark Maloney the other day, who's going to be the foundation president. All these folks are willing to come. They can't commit until June or July when the Rotary schedules come out. Of course, that's the big one. So do we go big and figure out the money, or do we say, no, it's just too much of a risk and go back to what, you know, where we were in May? I don't have that answer. Every board is going to have to decide that.
It's interesting to figure out whether or not we have to get into a subcontract, if you will. I mean, with the other districts so that they sign on. I mean, much like Carol's saying, you know, if that commitment of $100,000 is what it's going to take to actually do this. I mean, I love the idea, and I love the idea that we would be the home club or the home district for being able to sponsor this. And it sounds like there's tremendous amount of enthusiasm. And if you're going off of the models that are there, it sounds like that's something too. I mean, if those models that you're working with, Jim, if they had multiple districts, which it sounds like they did, how did they approach that? I mean, there's an open conversation with any of the others that ran those other conferences. How did they approach the contractual obligation with regard to multiple districts tying back into one event?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We could try to find out. The idea was, when this first started back in May, is when I talked to the DGEs, or to BG, you know, we were DGNs then, is that if you could have at least one liaison attend these meetings, they would be able to carry that back to the district for to get feedback and responses for these kinds of questions. That's somewhat has happened. The problem has been, it's been delayed so much because we can't get fixed numbers from the hotel. You know, here we are 8 months later, and still I can't give you, you know, the numbers is just a guess. So it's been a stress on the process. And that's not to put all the blame on the hotel. You know, some of the districts haven't some have participated more than others. So this issue has unfortunately been kind of delayed. It would have been hoped that we would have been able to talk about this, you know, beginning back in August. That doesn't quite answer it, but it's the lay of the land.
You'll probably get more interest from the district now because of IA and because of Stephanie's focus on the concept, and they're all going to be wanting to try to find that thing. So it eventually should end up being kind of a board item of discussion for direction for you. But I think it's a cool thing that you're doing.
And Jim, we can talk offline, but I mean, if you want financial buy-in, you might want to think about creating an alliance and having some contract around that. So that's not for discussion now, but we can talk about that offline.
Dustin, I didn't quite hear all that. Did
I
you?
didn't hear it either.
Oh, sorry, just like creating like an alliance with these districts and an agreement. We don't have to do that now, but talking about that offline and just writing the contract and just making sure that they have buy-in. So 5130 isn't liable for the whole thing. I mean, we're liable for our obligation with the hotel previously, but going forward, like, I mean, they need to have some skin in the game too. It's not on us.
Yeah, and put a date on it. Just say if you don't commit by the X date, then you're not part of it. I mean, I think we're at that point now,
Yeah,
right?
and I think there's another thing here too. Michael Fish has indicated that he would be more than willing to work with us and not charge us to be able to give us advice with regard to the legal side of it. So that might be a good place to reach out first, Jim. I mean, reach out to Michael and explain to him where we are with it, and then allow for him to go ahead and give us some recommendations on how we can approach this. If that works, I mean, you know.
Okay, I'll take it from there. I don't want to take more board time now,
Yeah.
but I'll keep everyone informed. Just very quickly on my report, and thank you for everyone's feedback. If you haven't heard, the site committee, the Rotary International Site Committee did not award San Francisco as the for the convention in 29. So that was disappointing to a lot of the folks who have worked on that committee very hard. But it's going to be in Minneapolis, so they outdid us. Pets registration is going really well, and we have, I think up to this point, we may have 40 president-elects, so we still need 6 more, which I guess is not too bad, considering what's going on. I did attend both training in San Diego and then, like I mentioned, in Orlando, which was fabulous. And that's it. I think I'll end my report there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Christine?
Yes, and I apologize for not being on camera, guys. I just got back from a 4-day trip for my new job and I'm not very camera ready. So look at my pretty picture instead. I'll keep this pretty brief. You can read through my report. Biggest news on mine was I attended the DGN training and Zone Institute since we last spoke, and I met all my fellow classmates, which was awesome. Any of you who have done that know how exciting that is. And I must say we're the best, DG class of all time, as you all feel yours are. But really great group of people and really excited, and it gets you really jazzed for your year. Thank you, Tom and Jim, for all your support also at that meeting. Working on getting, obviously one of my main responsibilities is the Singapore convention registration and social. All of that's going well. We're up to 68% of goal as of the 13th of January for registrations. And I'm working with the other districts that we're partnering with on the social to make sure that we get some money collected for deposits. It's going to be a cruise and a cruise in Singapore Harbor, and then food will be on everybody's own dime. So it'll just be the charge for the transportation and the cruise. So I'm working on that, and then just continuing on with all of the other meetings and calls that are required of me at this time, and just getting, starting to get my district conference planned, starting to contact venues. We know it's going to be in the South, starting to think about themes for my year, but also just supporting Tom and Jim as they continue in their journey. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Christine.
Can I ask a question? How are you collecting registrations for the social?
Valerie's going to create a form in conjunction with the other districts that we're working with.
Okay, so it hasn't started yet.
No. I will certainly let you know.
Okay.
I wrote to the other districts and they were like, it's not time. And I'm like, yeah, it's time. Let's get it going because I want to get it done. So I'll let you know as soon as we get that formalized and how we're going to collect that money. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. On this discussion item 2, Dustin and Jim, is there more to be discussed on that for the small clubs having a hard time including the president-elects or finding president-elects? I know this is a problem, and that's why we're down a couple of clubs from last year.
Well, Jim, if you don't mind, I'll just take the lead on this. Him and I spoke yesterday, and I wanted to clarify. This is a discussion item for the board to think about going forward. Christine, especially for you, and then your cohort coming in right behind you.
Jeff. Yeah.
What we're looking at, and Jennifer is aware of this as well, is costs go up for pets. We hadn't raised them in a number of years, yada yada yada. We all know that. However, small clubs or even diminishing clubs are having a harder and harder time finding ways to send their president-elects to pets. Leadership is one of the most important things that we have in Rotary. It's what we promote. It's what we learn from. You all know the story. So I'm just opening this up for discussion, and just to take the ball forward. Like, how are we going to support these smaller clubs or these diminishing clubs that can't afford to send their presidents to pets? Can the district do something? And if we can, like, how is that, going to show up? I understand there's a lot involved with this. It's a big conversation, but it needs to be brought up because membership is our lifeblood, and this is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing going forward. So I'll just leave it there.
So I know this has been a topic that's come up with my Rotary class of governors or whatever, and a lot has been bouncing back and forth on it with regard to whether or not you have to be. And we understand the experiences. If you're there, you're meeting people, you're actually having a great inspirational moment, really, or that weekend is very inspirational. However, there are quite a few districts that are now leaning more and more towards these virtual programs and allowing for individuals to go ahead and attend those virtuals. And we've had like John Gurney with Sonoma Sunrise, Sonoma Sunrise. I mean, he totally did the virtual. We had a couple of people that we had to go back and pick up and do a one-on-one to try and give them the understanding of the knowledge base for the PETS program. I recognize that it doesn't give them the full opportunity to be in the company of others that are taking the journey. But at the same time, that's really become a direction that quite a few districts are making certain that they have. If you can't attend it physically because of the cost factors on it, then there are alternatives. And I would hope that some of those alternatives are focused on that social side of it as well, so that even if you're in on a Zoom meeting and going through this, that there's, and I don't know what that process is. I haven't done that particular program, and I guess I could explore with a few people more, for instance, John Gurney, to ask him, how was that experience? He seemed to feel comfortable with it when I visited with his club, but we didn't dwell on the subject too much. But short of coming up with ways that, as you said, small and large clubs are looking at this and saying, well, what's the cost factor that's involved in it? Yes, I know that that's one alternative for us to be able to be more, to be able to place that virtual PETS program in front of clubs early on, so they have the opportunity to understand there's an alternative if they have to. But I just feel we have to try and continue to keep. And by the way, I commend you, Dustin, on the idea that this year we're going to actually have an AG training, that they're not just up against the wall. And that to me is really a solid idea as well. So I don't know. That's all. Those are my comments on it.
Thank you, Tom. And let me add to that. So not only is PETS having an AG training, but we're also creating a program for retread, for lack of a better term, presidents. So
That's great, because there are more and more of those every year.
Yep. And that's what we're looking at. And the only reason it's high and tight on my list and Jennifer's list as well is because we're back-to-back chairs of pets, and we see the value of pets in person. Both Tom and Jim and Christine, you'll have the benefit of attending IA in person. I know when I attended IA on Zoom, it was lacking. It's all we had available to us, right? During COVID times, we couldn't fly to Orlando. There were travel restrictions, but there's something to be said about the in-person meeting and the feeling going forward. You know, I don't need to elaborate. So, it's something to consider, and I just want to put it in the ether of conversation.
And
So,
thank you, Dustin, because Dustin and I had quite a good conversation on this. The only other suggestion I had was that Christine and Jeff, and perhaps Jennifer, since she's going to be doing it next year, get together and discuss this a little bit more. What their colleagues and their classmates might be thinking as well. One example I had, and it may not even be worth exploring, but it was with the AGs. You know, that's expensive if we're sending 12 AGs every year. Maybe we
Right.
just be sending the new AGs, you know, those who are coming on board, rather than have them repeat for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And maybe then that money can go towards some of these clubs that might need it. That's just a suggestion or something to kick around, but I really, you know, my budget for this is done, and who we've invited. And I'm happy with all that. But for the future, it's really Christine and Jeff and beyond who need to kind of see what they and their colleagues want to do.
thank you for that, Jim. And that's all I have to say about that. Is the conversation is open, so hopefully it'll be on the agenda going forward, and that's it. So thanks for the time, Tom.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so this is a good one, and Mary, thank you so much for bringing it up. And that is that we're looking for a co-admin person. Right now we've got Mary, but Mary is going to be retiring. And hey, Penny, how good are you at Office 365? But with Mary stepping out, and then we have Tom Bogue, and Tom is he's got some different issues that we've talked about. And right now, if Mary can't figure it out, it's got to go back over to Tom. And then Tom takes a little while still to figure it out, because I know I was having some complications with the program and trying to make sure that the program was functional. And so having an admin, it turns out that Mary, if I'm correct, you couldn't reach out for help direct. It had to happen from Tom Bogue. So we have some sort of a really kind of a crazy system for finding support for our office portal. And that's what this is. This would be someone that would be able to step in and become part of the team for the admin portal that we deal with and understand how all of that works.
And to clarify that just a little bit, I was unable to contact Microsoft Support Direct. I kept getting directed to a website, but Tom had like a secret spy number or something that got through. So he showed me where that is. So now I think I could probably get through if I had to. Tom is someone I relied on, I don't know, once a year, not very often. And when I did rely on him, he didn't even have access. I had to give him access to the account. So it was kind of a big deal, but it worked out, and he solved the issue. He got hold of help for us. But my concern is there should be at least another backup. There should always be at least 2 admins to this account. And with me retiring from the position, I'm sure Penny would appreciate a co-admin by her side, right? Yeah. So that's why, yeah, as Tom mentioned, we need to find someone. I was hoping somebody in the district who had experience, Tom Bogue is really good at it. He understands it. His club uses it daily. So he's very well versed in it, but be hopeful if there's someone along that line.
So maybe I can do something to send out a message to the presidents and ask them if they can at least bring it up to their clubs and members, and see if in fact somebody is out there that might be able to help us out on the admin side. And that's what it would be, just a call for help, and let them come back in. And Mary, would you be up for having a conversation with anybody who had an interest?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
Ashley was the co-admin with me when she was treasurer. So we had 3 at one point. So it'd be good to be back to that point.
Okay, so the more the merrier, it sounds like, we're at least 3. So that'll be an action item for me. I'll go ahead and I'll put something together and I'll run it by you, Mary, and then we can, make sure that I'm not misstating any of it for what we're asking for.
Right. Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so I have do we have to go back to Carol to wrap up that? Or are you ready, Carol, or with regard to the was it Jim's numbers?
Well, can't we finish? Are we done with this? No, we're not. Never.
No, I have those 2 more. I mean, I'll go ahead and finish this off then. I mean, basically, I wanted to, and I'd like to be able to share screen on this.
Oh, for you? Let me
Yes.
make you a call. Hang on.
Thank you.
Did not do that.
Am I there?
Yep.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
It says that you're there. You might have clicked a second too soon.
Okay, I'm there now. All right. Well, that's the one, share that one. So many of you know that this has been a project. I mean, my year, much like Stephanie is looking to promote peace, my year was really Gordon McAnally coming up and saying he wanted to support doing something about mental health. And so I went ahead and I did this. This was the title on it. How Are You Really? Was what he suggested on it. In this, there is a element in here that talks about Gordon and talking about his brother's suicide and the importance to recognize everyone knows someone could help. So this was the idea that I spoke with my chair for the Mental Health Committee, Dr. Bob Mosby with Healdsburg Sunrise, who put together about 13 different members initially, which it dwindled off as they progressed and moved things forward. But the idea here was to go into each of the different counties and be able to show the resources available in each county and give specific information for those counties. Anyone can go Google, mental health support. But what they'll get is they'll get a whole myriad of different things, whereas this site actually breaks it down and says these are the things that are specific to Del Norte County, and on each of them it also has information about how to deal with certain particular problems, and each of the counties has its own element that does that. As I created this, I was talking with someone in my office building is owned by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And when they heard about it, they said they wanted to try and do something like that for their group. So in fact, the idea was to go ahead and bring them in as co-sponsors on this particular site. And the site is built. I donate the site back over to the district with the hope that this is something that Jim, we can build on, and Christine, that we can build on and keep it there. Because so far, when I went back to Bob Mosby and I said, Bob, this is what the site is. And as he started looking around on the different pages of the site and looking at the resources that are available, he was kind of, he was blown away. And with the idea being that these are specific services for the particular area that these counties are in. So that gave me the idea that, well, we really need to push it out there. So I'm going to share that it took me a while, but I put my guerrilla marketing skills to work and decided that one of the ways that we could do this is that we could actually go in and let me find the other card here. I might have it on the other screen. 1 second. I actually have created a business card for this site. And so what that does, and let me just stop for a second and I'll come right back to it as soon as I find where I put the file. There's a business card. I've talked to every one of the clubs about the idea of this site, and they all know, and it seems to me that every club that I visited, everyone was pretty much kind of blown away by it and reserved. And I just think that I'm going back into my share. I found what I'm looking for. Same screen. So this is a card that we've created that will be sent out to every one of the clubs, every club president. They all know that it's coming, but it says, you know, Rotary cares about mental health. Give this card to someone you care about. With the idea being that we're not clinicians, but we are someone who can provide resources to their specific communities that they deal with. And on the back side, you'll see there's a QR code. And for those of us that are too old to really want to figure out how to do a QR code, there's also the name of the website. And so this card is handed, multiple cards can be handed off where they can be put in a purse, put in a wallet, but given to someone that someone feels, hey, you might need to find these resources, and here they are. So with that, I told this story to the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and they came back and said that they wanted to get into it. They wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to be able to send this out to their entire organization. So right now, basically, I mean, as the donor of the site, and that I've given myself a sponsor, and then Rotary 5130 as a sponsor on it as well. But now we would be able to add an additional statement, whatever, from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And the card that I just shared with you is the same card that would go to each of their members. And their membership overlaps us, that they have Humboldt, Lake, Mendocino, Napa, Sonoma, and they also have Marin. So we expanded it to go ahead and add resources for Marin. So I think this is a great way to try and get the word out there. But at the same time, we have the ability to push this out via some sort of social media form. And in order to do that, I mean, you'd have to have funding to be able to make it happen. I think the ideal situation, I've got some materials that we've been working on that talks about, well, what would it take to go ahead and create some sort of a social media campaign in addition to the guerrilla marketing of the business card concept. But to do that, we need to have dollars. So we put together some kind of numbers to be able to see, well, what would that take? And we think that in order to do a good job of being able to present this site across to multiple platforms, let me move this out of the way if that's in the way, multiple platforms so that we could actually be able to have some sort of a sponsor program that would give us the ability to create posts, to do things. And I'm looking at something where we could actually talk to sponsors. If we had 3 sponsors of $3,000 commitment per year, then we would be able to have the dollars to be able to push these social media platforms out for posts to multiple Facebook, Instagram, which, by the way, we have a Rotary 5130 Instagram, but it's currently pretty much owned by the Sonoma Valley Club, it appears. So having some sort of an official Instagram for us, and we do have a LinkedIn as well. And I think that this is an opportunity. So that brings me back around to the union has handed me a check for $3,000. I know that we're going through our 501c3. I'm just sitting on a check right now, trying to figure out when our 501c3 would actually open up so that we could actually do something to be able to accept funds and bring those back into the district. If the district, for any reason, doesn't really want to get involved in the idea of bringing in sponsors on this, which I might add, in Petaluma, that I talked to Brett, and his last name is always a tough one, Shen, I think, with Providence, and he's a community relations director for Providence Hospital, and he too has indicated that he would like to try and see them become sponsors of this. I don't think it's a big thing. The union has just committed to $3,000 per year. And they have not said that they're going to cut it off. It's an ongoing. They saw this and thought that this was an amazing opportunity for them to be able to reach out to their membership and pass the word on with, again, the same concept of the, are we working to create a new 501c3 for district? No, it is our 501c3 when it comes back into play. In other words, I've held this back on the dollars. Carol, you're asking on this whether or not we're going to go out and do a new 501c3. If the district chooses to do that for this specifically, great. Otherwise, I would think that we would be able to channel these dollars back through the 501c3 of the district. You're on mute.
Through a DRF?
No, that's why I'm sitting on this check.
DRF is a 501c3. The district is a 501c4.
So if they were to make it available to the district, then that would, so then maybe that's what we ought to do, is create something. If in fact there's a commitment to doing this type of a program and having this this visibility out there, then we might want to go ahead and consider creating that 501c3 for this. But in the interim, then what would I do and how would I do with the dollars? Would I use the dollars and wait and hand off the site at the end of this year, or when we could get something in place?
I don't, are you
That's a good point, Penny. Penny just had a really good, and you join the discussion, Penny, take it off the mute.
Putting my CPA hat on, basically sponsorships are a business deduction. They sponsor, so they're gonna, a business will treat it as a business expense. If an individual wants to sponsor, that's a different story, and that's where a 501c3 would come into play. But I suspect that the business that donates, it's not really a donation, it's a sponsorship, it's a business, and they don't really care, or they don't really need the 501c3.
I kind of thought that, but I thought for some reason we had to channel this through. But if that's the case, then it really comes down to figuring out and presenting back over to the district more of a comprehensive plan on how this could happen so that we could actually put this out there and support it through other outside donors that would be giving us that sponsorship. I don't want to muddy the site itself as far as like a cluster of things. I think that there's a set dollar that we could say, if we have this amount of money, we can do a really wonderful job keeping it alive, making sure that all the links are there all the time, and that we get to push it and promote it via some of the social media platforms that are out there. So I don't know that I'm asking for something directly yet, you know, but I'm informing and sharing this, and I'm really open to hearing a discussion on what it is.
Well, Tom, for me, and it was the same in my question with the youth exchange as far as the money. I'm happy to, if we need to, put something in the budget. You know, we're trying to, for next year, but you'd have to let me know what that is and where we could kind of fill that in. So
if, let's just say that, and let's just arbitrarily throw that $9,000 annual figure out. And if that's the number, then, and we're able to find sponsors for the site, then it could be a moot thing almost on the budget. Unless, I mean, but if the dollars are made out to the district, right? I mean, that's how that would work. The dollars would get made out to the district. The district would put that number in there, but it would be a number that we would try to offset with it being paid for through sponsorships. So it's kind of a moot number then, right?
I guess I don't, what happens if the money doesn't come in?
Yeah.
For some reason?
Does
or
this
all of it.
become a new program? Does this become a new program that we have to categorize and track ins
I
and
think
outs?
it's a worthy program, and I think it's one that should be able to have that opportunity. Dustin?
Yeah, let me just chime in. I think there are two wins as far as gathering attention for people and what people are actually concerned about are the environment and mental health. So anything that the district can do and clubs can do to promote that and kind of rally around that, I think are wins in a lot of ways. So whether it be financially or membership or attraction, whatever, call it what you will. But that's I think it's money well spent and well delegated.
Yeah, and I really think it's money well spent if it's not ours. I mean, you know what? We talk about it all the time, right? Other people's money. And in a situation like this, if the resources if are out there and people are willing to say, hey, I'd support this, then we can do that. I mean, I could get more technical on it and start looking at if someone only operates in Mendocino County and they only want to support whatever's going on in Mendocino, well, I can create a sponsorship that would be a single county sponsorship. But right now, the ease and simplicity of it and trying to push the whole thing out there, it's just find a dollar figure, get a commitment from them and say, okay, here's the dollars. And now we can run the whole site to move that out there. It doesn't have a big cost back over. It really doesn't. It's the promotion of the site. But this concept of doing the thing with the business cards, so far, I have multiple presidents who are just like, yeah, get me the cards, get me the cards. And so that's going to start happening at SCARC. I'll go out and I'll bring envelopes with the idea being that I'll give 2 or 3 cards per member, looking at the membership numbers, Jack. I'll look at the membership numbers and give 2 or 3 cards per member to each president so they can hand those out. And the response has been overwhelming so far in the actual meetings of these of the different clubs that I visited. So I guess what I'll do is I'll continue on this path and just see what else I can do to pull together a few more, and we can talk about it. Give me until the next board meeting and I'll bring it back in with some real plans to show how the dollars would be used in these different areas. But I have a pretty good overview on it right now. I just don't have all the detail for it. So I'll come back out with the detail and provide that to the board. And then if the board chooses to make this part of our program going forward, then it's there. And I think it'd be a great tool. I think people are going to be responsive to it. Okay, I'll move on to the next piece. I got this marketing company, and one of the things that we've had is to talk about Rotary. How do I get Rotary out there and get it happening? Well, a representative from the Press Democrat called me and said, hey, look, we have this really cool program. It's called Sonoma Gives. And what happens is if a client of mine purchases an ad, then they will donate the same size ad to a nonprofit. And then they will go ahead and it runs not only in the Press Democrat, but the Press Democrat, this is a Southern District thing, the Press Democrat, the Sonoma Index Tribune, and the Argus Courier. That puts it to the Petaluma newspaper, the local newspaper, the Sonoma Valley local newspaper, and also for the Press Democrat, which overlaps in all of those areas. So that's really great. And I have a client who's, I told him, I said, and I know your favorite thing is really to push and promote Rotary. So he's going to purchase an ad and then we'll be able to do something. I'm thinking about using that ad to be able to promote what we're doing with the mental health program with this particular website, show that and let that be, push that out there. But then they came back and they said, but if you're a nonprofit and you want to be a participant in this, it costs $1,070 and you get a full page in the paper. Well, it's only $2,170 for a profit organization. I'd like to put out the word to all of the clubs that tied into SCARC and be able to let them know. Because I think if we were to try and see if we can get the clubs working together, Jim, you know, the Petaluma clubs, as you've done before with these special sections, but whether you choose to do the $800 quarter page ad or $1,000 for a full page ad, and be able to list some of the different things that we've been working on and show images of your club and the activities that are there, the same thing can happen in the Sonoma Index Tribune. I was just in a meeting where they've had 12 articles now in that paper at the Sonoma Valley Club, and I would think that Sonoma could do the same thing, that they would cluster together and put their dollars together. I mean, a full page with 4 clubs from the Sonoma Valley working with their AG is like $250, $260 a piece. I'm just saying, I'm not committing anybody to it, but I want to send out the messaging to all of the clubs to be able to say, if you partner together, you can do these full pages. For the areas that would do that, I mean, the Press Democrat would actually even build the ad. So there's no heavy graphic cost on that. I make sure in my messages out to let the clubs know, to make sure you're using their proper identification, the proper logo and all that for your branding. But I think it's a great opportunity to really put in front of a whole bunch of people, because it's one section. It publishes on the 18th of February, but then it publishes the following week in both the Index Tribune and also in the Argus Courier. And it also has an online presence that's going to last for 60 days or something. But I can easily see that this section that they thought, you know, that they put all of these different nonprofits on there, but we could actually own and control a lot of that section and really get some visibility for Rotary. So what I'm really here for is to say that I know that we put aside, Carol, this year, a $10,000 branding figure, and I'm going to look to that to be able to do something for the district that would go into that publication, and we pay for our own at $1,070 for that page, and go ahead and create something that would all be pushing the district, but yet give the clubs the opportunity to do things to talk about their communities specifically. My whole conversation in clubs has been talking about the reason somebody joins is community. The reason they stay is friendship, but we talk about community. And I'm not so much concerned about trying to push and promote the idea of the international side of us right now. We can do that once we capture somebody who actually is thinking, hey, this is a great way to go on the community. So Jack, I think this is a great opportunity for us to do something about saying, hey, you don't have to join us, just help us. And at least give them the opportunity to call in and find out, how can I help?
Agreed.
So, Tom, is there a sense of urgency on this? If it's
Well, there will be, because I just got it on, they just talked to me about it initially on Thursday, and they gave me the wrong numbers, and then came back Friday and said, here's the real numbers. Okay, fine. But the urgency is that it would have to be booked in time for them to be able to build it. But it's February 18th. I think in order to get clubs working together, there's the urgency. Right? It's too easy for one to set aside and say, oh, well, you know, I've got this going on. So that's where the urgency would come. And I do think I can send something out next week and start informing, and also present at the SCARC meeting to pump it up again there. Carol?
Is the point to get people to engage in volunteer activities that various clubs have available?
Well, potentially, if they list out, if the idea is that they would list out, hey, we're doing these particular projects, great, you know, and then that would be great. I mean, what we're trying to do is inspire people to actually interact with us. But what I'm looking for as the district is the brand. I just like the brand Rotary, and make sure that everybody understands and knows what Rotary is, and then allow for the clubs to present their own projects that they're doing and what they're doing specifically in their communities.
So Mary asked me to say she got kicked out. She got frozen, and then she got kicked off the call, and she lost connection. She thinks it might be due to weather. So she's trying to get back in, but she doesn't know.
Who's hosting?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, check participants. See if she's trying to get back in.
Hey, Tom, I think it's a great idea. We need to be out there in as many ways as possible. So yeah, however you can
Yeah.
get that, however you can get that out there, great, but good call.
Yeah, well, I mean, the beauty of it is that we haven't used the dollars on the branding. I mean, the costs on doing 5,000 business cards to present out to the presidents, I consider that part of that branding fund that we have set aside for it too. So we have really minimal dollars that we've used so far, and this would be a really nice way to get the word out, at least on the
Hey, Tom,
South.
can I show you something that that our club is using for branding and has for a couple of years? Would you enable screen sharing for me?
Go ahead and try it, see what happens there.
Host disabled participant. You have to
Oh,
enable
okay,
it for
fine.
me.
So here we go. Allow, put in waiting room. I don't know where the hell that is. How do I find it? Do you know?
Good question. I
think-
know how to.
If
Yeah,
you want
I
to
think
enable
you-
like a host, go to the three dots in the
I
upper
want to
right
give
hand.
him an
Yeah,
opportunity.
the three dots will do it, I think.
The more?
Yeah,
Yep.
it should be there.
No, that doesn't do it.
No, that's not it.
Darn, okay.
Or hover over the participants square and
Yeah.
go over their three dots and then go enable host if it allows you to do as much.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Oh, I'm back. Yeah, I'm over that. So, and it has, rename allow to record files, allow to multiply pin, put in waiting room,
No, it doesn't.
report. That doesn't have anything on
It says make co-host. If you click
Oh.
on Jack,
All right.
let me try it.
Yeah.
I can do it, so.
Yeah, you're
Jack,
the host.
made you a
All
co-host.
right. See, you were asking the wrong guy. You got to
Okay,
know where
good.
your strengths and weaknesses are. This is a weakness for me.
Okay, everybody sees my desktop, right?
Perfect.
Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
I'm looking at my
Okay, this
girlfriend.
is. Yes, you are. And that's what made me think of it.
Yeah,
But this
that's
is
interesting there.
I don't. Do you guys have a little menu that's blocking the top view or not, or it's just on my screen?
Just
Anyway,
on your
We
screen.
can see the top. We can
this
see the whole
is
thing.
this. Yeah, this is going into the North Bay Business Journal, and it's sponsored by our favorite accounting firm, Lincolnheimer.
Nice.
And essentially they pay for it, but we've been running this for a couple of years now, and it's a great way to get the message out of what it is that Rotary does and why you should get involved. And it's targeted directly towards like the business type audience, so that's something that we should distribute as well. Use something like this as a template for other clubs to follow.
Yeah, I have one thing on this, and again, this is something that I talk about all year, is if the number one reason that anybody joins Rotary is for community, and yet all we're doing here is we're really talking about the international work that we're doing. And as you go to the very bottom of that, you'll see that you're saying, Rotary is a 1.2 million member. If we were to say something about Rotary being, we are a community-based organization changing the lives of people that live within our community and in the world. I'm not excluding.
That's what these 3 bullet points are here. It says that
okay.
Rotary has helped provide 10,000 meals in our community. Talks about food that we gather for Redwood Empire. And also here it says Rotary has contributed over 500 hours yearly to help feed our community. But it's all strictly community focused. The only thing that really is outside of that is a couple of bits of text down here, and also the fact that I think this picture up here is taken from Nicaragua. Is that true,
Yeah.
Dustin? Yeah, but it doesn't identify it as Nicaragua. But anyway, just something to think about.
I like it. Okay, so I'm going to. I think we're at the conclusion of the board. I know Jennifer has to bail out, and I don't want to lose this where we. Yes.
We need to go back and talk about Dustin's reserves.
Okay. Well, we do that, and then we can close this. Is that how that works? Hi there.
I'm back. I'm on my phone. I don't have any Wi-Fi, but I'm cellular service right now.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go back now. We're gonna talk about Dustin's, then we come back and close this.
Did we close the board meeting?
Okay, do I close the board meeting and then we go back to Dustin?
Yes, please.
Okay, so can I get a motion to close the actual board meeting?
I motion to close.
And a second?
I'll second.
Jim seconds. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and now we're gonna double back to the finance program and look at what we had for Dustin.
Okay, so here we are. So the budget numbers, so to do this calculation, you always use the current budget. So we're looking at the 23-24 budget. So these are the numbers that are in there. So you can see that there's a formula that we follow. We take the reserve savings account. We take the reserves checking account. Those are those first two lines. We take 50% of these, of the dues amount, 50% of the international subsidy, and all of these formulas to come down to how much money is the remainder in the general fund. It's $20,000. So it's saying that as of right now, regardless of who's district governor, right now, we have enough money looking at what we're doing to not have to put money in reserves. Okay. Everybody kind of understanding that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we look
Yes.
at what Dustin's unused funds were at the end of his year. It was $14,173.84. So then the question is, do you do something with that money? Do you say, oh, I want to do XYZ with it? Or do we put it in reserves? Do we leave it in operating? If for those of you who looked at the thing I did for Jennifer, I had said the recommendation was that we leave it in operating just because we don't know what's coming up, with the peace conference and with some other things that are on the horizon. But that's up to the board to discuss.
And I want to say that some of this is up to Dustin. I mean, Dustin, if you have a project and now if you're just looking at this number for the first time, do you need to take some time to figure out, well, what would you want to do with that rather than make an instantaneous decision on where it goes? And if that were the case, is there anything pressing, or would you want to roll this and then make a decision at our next board meeting?
Carol, thank you for putting this together. And Tom, thank you for the segue. I'd love a little bit of time to think about it. Personally, the way I'm thinking about it right now is I want any sort of delegation of funds to go towards our upcoming governors and administration's kind of needs and promotions. So let's just pend it for now. And Carol, you and I and Jim and Christine will kind of talk about what's going on, and we'll just kind of slate it at the next board meeting.
Perfect.
Sounds great, Dustin. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for jumping.
Okay, so while we still have Jennifer and we have to I'm going to move forward to say that should conclude our financial portion of the meeting. And do I get a motion to accept the financial presentation?
Jennifer will move to accept the financial.
Is there a second?
Christine will second.
Perfect. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Hey, thank you very much. This is a long meeting, a lot of conversation, and I really appreciate the fact that I get to work with every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
We need to close this meeting, Tom.
Jennifer makes a motion to close the meeting.
Who said that?
Jennifer.
I'll second.
And who said that?
Dustin.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Cool. We're
Jennifer
closed.
won, Dustin too.
All right. We'll talk next time. Thank you.
Thanks,
Or sooner, I
everyone.
hope.
Bye.
Have a good
All right, bye
weekend.
now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.